Right, so you want to qualify for the UTMB weekend out in Chamonix, but not sure how to do it. I get it, it's very complicated. I haven't been sure either, but the amount of runners that I coach that aspire to do it and just other people asking me on social media means that it's more than worthwhile for me to kind of take a good look at it, understand the process, so that everyone that watches it can hopefully get a bit of a better understanding into how to actually get to Chamonix and run the race that you want to do. What I'm not going to touch too much on in the video is the history of the event, the old way of qualifying with ITRA points and so on, and whether you should or shouldn't be going out to run the UTMB in Chamonix. I just wanted this video to be as clear as possible. So right, the UTMB World Series Finals is atop of a pyramid, and that consists of the OCC, which is a 50-kilometre event, the CCC, which is a 100-kilometre event, and the UTMB, which is the 100-mile event. So there's just those three events that are classed as the World Series Finals events, and yes, there are other events that go around that weekend in Chamonix. Now the whole UTMB structure consists of World Series events. There's 25 of those at the time of recording. 3 of those are nominated as major events, which we will look into after and why that's important, and then the final World Series in Chamonix. Now to qualify for one of these final races, the OCC, the CCC or the UTMB, you essentially need 2 things: running stones and the correct UTMB index. The running stone is essentially your raffle ticket or your entry into the lottery for the race that you're trying to get to in the finals in Chamonix. You can collect the running stones anytime within the previous 2 years of the lottery. So how do you get hold of these running stones? Well, first of all, you have to complete one of the races in the World Series. If you enter a race and DNF, then there's no stones for that, I'm afraid. And the cumulative, which means you can enter multiple races in that 2 years and add them all up. And the World Series events consist of 20k, 50k, 100k and 100-mile events. The way that the stones are distributed are: for a 20k event you'll get 1 stone, 50k 2 stones, 100k 3 stones, 100 miles 4 stones. Now there's no minimum requirement for the amount of stones that you need in order to enter one of the final races. So for example, if you want to run the UTMB 100-mile big showcase event, then you can enter that lottery with just 1 stone. So collecting your running stones before the lottery is just one part of the puzzle. The next thing you need to think about is your UTMB index. Now the UTMB index, taken from the UTMB website, essentially provides the performance level of each runner. And the important part is that you need a valid index number in order to enter the correct race. Now if you already have a performance index but you want to understand a little bit more about how that is worked out, my best advice would be to go onto the UTMB website. The info is there, you just have to hunt a little bit for it. But to enter your chosen lottery, you will need a index number that matches the correct distance for your race. So if you want to run the OCC, it's pretty simple. You can run any race that is 20k, 50k, 100k or 100 miles, and that would qualify you on the UTMB index. For the CCC, you can run a 50k, 100k or 100 miles, and the UTMB, you can run 100k or 100 miles. So one of the sticking points I found when speaking to people, that they assumed that they would need to run a 100-mile qualifier for the index in order to enter the UTMB lottery. That's not the case. You can run 100k or 100 mile and have your running stones, and that will get you into the lottery. Same for the CCC, which is a 100k race. You can actually qualify for the lottery with a 50k, 100k or 100-mile race. That's where it starts to get a little bit more interesting, because let's say you want to run the UTMB, the 100-mile event, but you can access the lottery with a 100k event, which would give you 3 stones, but also you could run a series of 20k or 50ks to essentially top up your running stones. What that does is open up the UTMB to people that have not run a 100-mile World Series event before. Okay, I feel like we need to do a little bit of a roundup of that information, or I do anyway. So the running stones that you're aiming to collect, they must be collected within the previous 2 years. You can get one of those stones by completing any of the UTMB World Series events. 1 stone equals 1 raffle ticket into the lottery. But in order for that ticket to be valid in the lottery, you also need a matching UTMB Index number. For the OCC, you need an index in at least the 20 kilometre category. For the CCC, you need an index at least in the 50k category. And for the UTMB, you need an index at least in the 100k category. In reality, if you complete one of the races on the list that is matching the distance that you want to race, then you will get your entry into the lottery. Now, into the slightly more complicated bits. First up, for the index number, there are not just the races available on the World Series circuit, there is also lots of other races that will give you an index number from their race. What they won't have is a stone to go with it. You can now also enter as a group, so if you only plan to go to Chamonix if some of your friends say get into the races, then you can do that as a group. The only issue with that is the maximum number of stones that you can use per person is the minimum number that one of your group has. So for example, if I have 4 stones, but my friend has 6 stones and another friend has 8 stones, then we all have my 4 stones going into the lottery. Interestingly, there are also 3 major events within the World Series. Now there's one in Europe, there is one in the Americas, and there is also one in Asia, Oceania. Now when it comes to one of the 3 major events, you actually get double running stones on completion. So if you were to run the 100 mile at Val d'Aran in Europe, you wouldn't get 4 stones, you would get 8 stones on completion. I've spoken to people that may plan to do a series of events over the 2 years to bump up their chances by getting more running stones, when in fact it might be a more economical and I guess sustainable option to just go and run one major event. So if I was in Europe and I wanted to increase my chances, then going to Spain for the Val d'Aran major event is a good way of doubling my chances without having to travel to lots of different races. Now, if you happen to be one of the few that are nearer the front end of the race, then qualification can come in the traditional way that I've explained, but also if you finish in the top 3 of a World Series event, then you will get automatic qualification into that correlating distance. Example, if you finish in the top 3 of a 50k event, then you will get automatic entry into the OCC. 100k event, CCC, 100 mile event, UTMB. Not sure why I'm doing this with my hands. Also, going back to those 3 major events, it's actually a top 10 finish will get you automatic entry into that distance. And if you're at the top of the top and you finish in the top 3 of the World Series final event, I'm talking the likes of Killian or Courtney, then you will automatically get a place into the race the following year at the finals, as long as you have completed one of the World Series events in that distance. What that means is that everyone that is at that UTMB final weekend in Chamonix will have raced themselves into the event. Now, if you're watching this in 2022, then for 2023, they are still working through some deferrals and the old processes, so there will be a number of runners with priority. And the bottom line for all this, we don't actually know yet how many running stones will be enough to get you through the lottery. I guess when that happens in a couple of months, we will have a slightly clearer picture of how many running stones at least you will need. But as the sport becomes more popular and if UTMB continues to grow, then I can imagine that you will only need more stones in the lottery. Okay, so hopefully that has helped make things a little bit clearer for you. It's made things a little bit clearer for myself, and when I explain to the people that I coach, I can just send them to this video now, hopefully. But I might have missed something. Have you noticed something in the rules and the qualification process that I have missed out? Please let me know in the comments below. Do you plan to race it, or has it completely put you off trying to qualify for the UTMB? Please let me know in the comments, spark a bit of conversation, and I would be happily joining in with you all. Okay, see you on the next video. My name's Gary House. I'm the leader of the House Running Club.